Krishna Prasad Bhakti Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhash Chaitanya Shatarane Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 2, Text 15. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, it's behind me, isn't it? Okay. Okay, that's why I was confused. Anyway, yeah. Rupam tapodhana tapash. There's a better meter. Rupam tapodhana tapaschara tapo. Yeah, how is it? Can you remind me of how it goes now? Oh, yeah, thank you. Rupam tapodhana tapascharatam tabognam. Rupam tapodhana tapascharatam tabognam. Hyetattu kena tapasa bhavato palabdham. Hyetattu kena tapasa bhavato palabdham. Chartum tapor hasimaya sahamitramaham. This one again. Kartum tapor hasimaya sahamitramaham. Kim va prasidati savai bhava bhavano me. Kim va prasidati savai bhava bhavano me. Somebody else? Rupam tabodhana tapascharatam tabognam. Hyetattu kena tapasa bhavatot balabdham. Kartum taporhasi maya sahamitramaham. Kim va prasidati savai bhava bhavano me. What is it? Hyetat tukena. Hyetat tukena tapasa bhavatot palabdham. Kartum tapor hasimaya sahamitramaham. Kim va prasidati savai bhava bhavano me. Rupam, beauty. Tapadhana, O best of the sages, performing austerity. Tapaha, Tapa charatam, of persons engaged in executing austerities and penances. Tapagnam, which dismantles the austerities. He, certainly. Etat, this. Tu, indeed. Kena, by what? Tapasa, austerity. Bhavata, by you. Upalabdham, achieved. Kartum, to execute. Tapaha, austerity. Arhasi, you ought. Maya, Maya saha, with me. Mitra, my dear friend. Mahyam, unto me. Kimva, or maybe. Prasidati, is pleased. Saha, he. Vai, certainly. Bhavabhavanaha, the creator of this universe. Me, with me. Translation: O best among those performing austerities, where did you get this wonderful beauty that dismantles the austerities performed by others? Where have you learned this art? What austerity have you undergone to achieve this beauty, my dear friend? I desire that you join me to perform austerity and penance, for it may be that the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, being pleased with me, has sent you to become my wife. Purport: Agnidra appreciated the wonderful beauty of Purvachiti. Indeed, he was surprised to see such exceptional beauty, which must have been the result of past austerities and penances. He asked the girl whether she had achieved such beauty just to break the penances and austerities of others. He thought that Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, might have been pleased with him and might therefore have sent her to become his wife. He requested Purvachiti to become his wife so that together they could perform austerities and penances in family life. In other words, a suitable wife helps her husband perform penances and austerities in household life, if both of them are on the same elevated platform of spiritual understanding. Without spiritual understanding, husband and wife cannot be equally situated. Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, is interested in good progeny. Therefore, unless he is pleased, one cannot get a suitable wife. In fact, Lord Brahma is worshipped in marriage ceremonies. In India, even today, wedding invitations are still used with a picture of Lord Brahma on the face of the card. And I'll read another verse also. Na tvam tyajami dayitam dvijadeva dattam yasmin manodrigapi no naviyati lagnam mam charu srinkarhasi netu manuvratam te Chittam yata pratisarantu shiva sachivyaha. Translation: Lord Brahma, who is worshipped by the Brahmanas, has very mercifully given you to me, and that is why I have met you. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, I thought it was a different verse because I read it before and I didn't recognize it. Lord Brahma, who is worshipped by the Brahmanas, has very mercifully given you to me, and that is why I have met you. I do not want to give up your company, for my mind and eyes are fixed upon you and cannot be drawn away. O woman with beautifully raised breasts, I am your follower. You may take me wherever you like, and your friends may also follow me. Purport: Now Agnidra frankly admits his weakness. He was attracted to Purvachiti, And therefore, before she could say, "But I have no business with you," he expressed his desire to be united with her. He was so attracted that he was ready to go anywhere, hell or heaven, in her company. When one is absorbed in lust and the influence of sex, one surrenders to the feet of a woman without reservations. Srila Madhvacharya remarks in this connection that when one engages in joking and talking like a crazy person, one may say anything and everything, but his words will be meaningless. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, still kind of on the same topic as when I spoke the last time, and I think it's giving us good lessons on in life, as usual, as what Bhagavatam does. I thought today I'd kind of mention a few things that, because we spoke before about how differences between men and women, and that in married life also to take, certain the man has to take certain responsibilities, and the woman also has different responsibilities in order to get a full what do you call it? In order to complement each other's qualities, so to say. In China, I think it's from China, this yin and yang, right? It's like the opposites, but they together they become very become a full picture, and they complete each other. So that's the same principle, that if we learn what our first of all we need to know what our duties are, and then we need to try to implement them. Then we can have success in spiritual life, and it doesn't always have to mean that we have to actually be perfect at doing those duties, because who is perfect in Kali Yuga? But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that even if we to perform another's duty can be dangerous. So it's better to perform our duty even faultily, because if we don't do so, then there might be danger if we perform somebody else's duty. It may be that we even can perform that person's duty better than another person, but still that means that we might get entangled in some way more in the material world, in our false pride or something like that, because we're not actually doing what we are supposed to do, and we feel it's not a good situation for us, even if we can perform better than others in doing that. So this is also so in married life, for example. It's interesting, it's most of the people in the class right now are actually brahmacharis, but I think it's good to know these things also for preaching, because there are many people who will ask these questions, and it's also good to know, even if you're not planning to get into it, it's still good to know what it is, so that you know what you're not getting into, so to say. Like somebody said, if somebody you met a Satanist on the street who you were trying to give the person a book, and then you said, "Oh, but it's good to know your enemy," so then you tried to give him an enemy. It's kind of the same principle. Not that it's your enemy, that's sense, but you know what I mean. So we mentioned also last time about that there are certain devotees speaking about these topics and giving more in-depth realizations about men and women and about how to live peacefully in married life and in general, basically just how to be a man and how to be a woman. Because today in Kali Yuga we don't learn this. Also, Tapu Divyan Prabhu also mentioned this, that it's easier for a woman to be a woman because it's natural. We're naturally prakriti. That's the energy that's meant to be enjoyed by Krishna, and that's dependent on Krishna. That's our position as a spirit soul. But when we get put into this situation in the material world, we get to pretend like we're not actually prakriti. We pretend like we're the enjoyer, basically. So I think in one sense it's easier for women to come back to that point of just being prakriti. Of course, today women try to be purusha also, and I mean everybody's trying to be the enjoyer like that. But it's closer for the woman to be in the to be a woman, basically, to be their gender. But for a man, man has to learn more how to be a man, because it's also, one would think that it's just to be, well, if the woman should be more like prakriti, then the man should be like purusha. But it's not really like that either, because the man should also be in a spiritual relationship. The man should be also be a servant and should be putting Krishna in the center. So it's not that he should be, many people see it as the man, they think the man should just be a strict dictator in the home and order everybody else what to do, and he should be lazy and not happy to do anything, and everybody else should serve him, basically. And that is a very material conception of things. That's what everybody wants to be in the material world, basically. To be in the center and be served by everybody else and order everybody else what to do, basically. So that's not really how it's supposed to be. But what a man is supposed to be is a person who is a natural leader, takes charge in the family, and in order to inspire this service mentality from a woman, we hear many times in Shastra that a woman should be faithful and chaste to the husband, and all of this, and this is something that also needs to be inspired by a man. Also, the man should actually deserve it, not that the woman should just of course she should serve her husband in all circumstances, but it doesn't make it easy to do that if the man doesn't deserve it. So in order to inspire that in a woman, a man should be very hardworking. He should be, of course, the most central point is to be Krishna conscious. That will inspire anybody to want to serve that person, whether it's a sannyasi or brahmachari, whoever. So that is the most important point, to be Krishna conscious. But that also means to be hardworking, because you can't be Krishna conscious if you're lazy and don't want to serve Krishna, and don't do your sadhana properly if you sleep all morning. And so it's important for a man to not be on the mental platform, because naturally the woman is more emotional. That means actually more on the mental platform, but it's meant to be like that, so that the woman can be more a better mother, can be more caring, and be the central point of the family, and can be nurturing, because that female energy is very, very powerful and very nurturing, and can inspire the whole family to actually to feel fulfilled, basically, and inspire to be what they should be, basically. So that's how the female energy can work. It's very powerful in that way, to inspire the husband and the children, and to be encouraging in that way. So where was I with that? So naturally, the woman should be more emotional like that, and that means thinking, feeling, and willing. Right? That's the qualities of the mind: thinking, feeling, and willing. So the feelings, in order to have that means the person has to be more on the mental platform. And it's totally natural. It's nothing one should criticize anybody for. It's just how the different vehicles are built, basically. And they're built to be engaged in Krishna's service in different ways in order to give this full picture. So in order for a woman to actually feel respect and feel secure also in a relationship, that means also that the husband needs to be able to control his senses, control his mind, and be giving protection in that way, giving emotional protection, material protection, and spiritual protection also, so that the relationship is grounded in that. Because like Prabhupada points out many times, that the woman's body is naturally dependent. So the natural position of a woman is that she's dependent on the husband. But if the husband is not giving that strength so that the woman can be dependent, then of course she will try to be dependent on herself and try to be strong. And it works. I mean, you can see in society, sure, like it works. People are surviving. Women can have, a big career and live alone for most part of their lives, and it's functioning, especially in Krishna consciousness. If one takes shelter of Krishna, anything is possible. But we see in the relationships that if in married life, if the woman takes more of this more male responsibilities, there becomes imbalances, and also it will make the man less inspired, and actually it can destroy a man in one sense. A man can become very useless and very weak, and we see that all the time in society today. That today men are not really trained to be men. They actually, or I can say, I'm also one of them. We're trained to be more like women, and actually women are trained to be more like men somehow or another. I don't know why that is, but it's seen as something positive now. If a man is more like a woman and a woman is more like a man, then it's like there's something good. But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you do somebody else's duty, then there is danger. There's danger in that path. So it makes it very more difficult for a person to practice spiritual life in that way, because the woman might become more proud, and it becomes more difficult to actually practice any spiritual life, and the man doesn't get any inspiration, the right inspiration from a woman. A man needs to feel kind of like a hero. Devaki Mataji, I don't know if you heard about her, but she is from Germany. She's lived in Australia for many years, and she's written a book about this topic, men and women and spiritual culture. And she also gives seminars a lot about this. And she gives this comparison that a man is more like a tractor, kind of. And a tractor needs to be, strong, needs to be in the front and to pull heavy things and be kind of the leader in that sense. And that will inspire him to it sounds a little childish. When I heard it myself, it felt like, that's a bit, But that's how it is. A man wants to be strong and wants to be more, in charge and like that. But that doesn't mean a good leader doesn't only decide by himself, or it's not a dictator. A good leader. I saw I liked actually the meeting that you had the other day, and I saw how Muktarama Prabhu seems very, like he takes input from others. He's asking others for their opinions on things, and like that's a good leader doesn't only decide by himself. A good leader, like a king, for example, had many brahmanas who gave expert advice on certain topics, but he would still make the decisions. They would give the advice, and they were very intelligent. They're actually higher on the scale, in the varnashram ladder, but still the king he makes the decisions. So it's the same way in family life, ideally. So that's what's needed for a man to feel fulfilled and actually feel, it gives a man a lot of strength to actually perform well and do devotional service nicely, and to be a good husband like that. A man can inspire a woman to be more woman-like by being a man, and a woman can also inspire a man by being more like a woman. Devaki Mataji, she focuses more on that point, because she's a woman and she speaks more about these of that side. And she says obviously the female energy is actually stronger than the male energy, so I think it's probably easier for a woman to inspire a man to perform well. But it's both ways, it's definitely possible. And she's heard she told that there are so many devotees who come with different problems, they just hear some of her lectures and they start practicing the principles she gives for how to just be more feminine and inspire a man, and then suddenly the problems in the relationship kind of just change. Or in a workplace even, there was one woman who said that her work partners were being kind of, like how men often are sometimes towards women, kind of condescending and like, kind of pushing her down a little bit like that. It can happen because this natural tendency for a man is they want to be the leader. So if they don't get that, if freely kind of if the woman doesn't accept that part, it can easily happen that they abuse the woman and try to forcefully push the woman down, which is not really nice at all. Like, it shouldn't be like that. It's very unfortunate that that's how it is, but unfortunately it is like that many times if the man can't control his false ego, and men naturally have, I think, a little bit more of a false ego. That's my own speculation, but that's the tendency I've seen. But anyway, so it's unfortunate that that's the fact, but it can be, it is there because many times we don't accept our roles, and therefore there is an imbalance, and people act in certain ways that are not favorable for our relationships and like that. So it becomes more harmonious. So this woman who had this relationship in the workplace, she was feeling very pushed down and like that. But then suddenly she started just changing certain things in her mood, and then suddenly people were being so much more nice to her. She noticed, and they were being, it just changed because they didn't feel that competition, like with trying to be over, on top, and that's actually how women have the power to actually control. Actually, in all relationships, in the married life, they're actually always controlling, whether they are taking the man's position or they're taking the female role. But the way to control in a more wholesome way for the relationship to become more well suited for Krishna consciousness and more harmonious is to take the humble position and be, take the position under the husband, let the husband lead more and like that. And in that way, he will be very inspired to actually want to listen to what is her opinion, and he will happily let her, make all the choices basically. But it's done in a subtle way, and it's done in a very inspiring way, so that the man still feels like he's making the decisions, which is actually, it's kind of like tricking the man in that way. And I must just add that all of this is still, for me, on the theoretical platform, so maybe some of you later on have some more practical realizations on this that will give some maybe correction or some more depth to what I've been saying. But I also wanted to add that, again, like the most important thing in the relationship is that Krishna is in the center, and that it's Prabhupada mentions in the purport also that both of them have to be on the same elevated platform of spiritual understanding. So both the man and woman need to be Krishna conscious. But naturally, if the man, even if the woman does not feel so inspired for Krishna consciousness, if the man takes the lead in that sense and shows a strong spiritual, shows spiritual strength, then naturally she will feel inspired to do the same. And it might not be the same the other way around necessarily, because then the man will feel like, oh, she's trying to be, better than me, and like that. So then it's just, unfortunately, that's how the false egos work in the body, the male and the female ego. That's, I'm not happy to hear about these things, but that's how the bodies work, basically, the subtle bodies. And coming to that point of subtle bodies, or actually the false ego, I just remembered I was listening to a class by Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and he was talking about the point that if one is not Krishna conscious, then the false ego will take over, which is kind of so he was giving the example of King Bharat, who he became. Well, first of all, you think we've all heard this story, but he was in the forest performing austerities, and then he found a deer who had just been born from a miscarriage. The mother was scared by a lion, and she was jumping over a stream, and then the deer got born too early in the water, and then he saw the deer was almost drowning. The baby deer was almost drowning, so he went to help the baby deer. And ultimately he became too attached to the deer, and then in his next life he ended up becoming a deer himself, because that's what he was thinking about the deer so much. He had a lot of affection for it. So I was thinking, when I heard this, I was thinking, I mean, what should he have done if he saw the deer? Shouldn't he have helped the deer at all? I mean, that sounds like a wrong thing to do. Like for Vaishnava, if you see suffering living entity, you should help the deer, right? Or should help it, to survive if it's dying, Vaishnavas are naturally compassionate towards all living beings. So, but then later on, Maharaj actually answered that. He said that it was actually correct what he did. It wasn't wrong. But the point was that he started thinking that he was the doer, he was the protector of the deer, and he was nurturing it and all of that. So it's interesting, because I never heard this point before. I only heard it in his class. That actually, so he did it correctly. He should have given protection to the deer, but because he became, he started identifying with his false ego, his ahankar. So he was thinking he was the doer. He was thinking he was protecting it. and therefore he became overly attached, and therefore he became a deer in his next life. So it's the same thing in married life, that we need to constantly stay Krishna conscious. That has to be in the center. Otherwise we will think that we are the doer. I am the protector of this family. I am the nurturer. Both for the man and the woman. They're both nurturing the children, for example, or like that, and performing service to each other. That's always there in the material world also, performing different types of service to each other. It's our natural position to serve each other. But if we think that we are doing it, actually, then we will get more attached, and we will still be caught in the wheel of samsara. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Shabda ke parusham nishu, he says that I am the sound in ether, and I'm the ability in man. So Krishna is the ability in everything that we do. Because ultimately we have everything we have comes from Krishna. Everything that exists is Krishna. And we happen to just be parts and parcels of Krishna, but we are not Krishna. So we're always dependent on Him for everything. And we need to remember that in everything that we do. That we may think that, oh, well, I can pick this up, no problem, I'm doing it. But it's not me. I mean, I'm not even the body, and the body is given by Krishna. I may have the desire to pick it up, but it's been fulfilled by Krishna's mercy. Because I may just get a stroke, and then my right arm doesn't work anymore. Anything can happen. So we need to always remember that and be thankful that Krishna gives us the opportunity to use our body in His service. That's ultimately all we can do. It's like when you go into the Ganga, you take a part of the Ganga and you offer it back to Him. That's all we do. That's all we can do. And try to put as much love in it as we can. There's a recording on YouTube that it's called "Everything is Bhakti" or something like that. It's a very short part of a class that Prabhupada gave, or a conversation, I don't know. But Prabhupada starts with saying everything is bhakti, and then he says something like, "So what else do we have to give? We have nothing more to give." And he actually starts crying in this recording, which is very powerful to hear. Prabhupada crying, he becomes emotional, and he says how. So please, what does he say now? Did I forget it? Does somebody know? Have you heard it? Maybe we should listen to it later. Anyway, he encouraged his disciples to, so please so don't be puffed up, he says, with his choked up voice. So please don't be puffed up, and just give your service to Krishna, show your love to Him. He didn't say exactly those words, but that was what he meant, and what he said before. So that's the central point in all of our whatever relationships we have. If it's man and woman relationship, if it's friendly relationships between brahmacharis, we still need to get that nurturing relationship in some way or another. So Krishna consciousness means close relationships. So if you're brahmachari, you need close relationships with other devotees in the brahmachari ashram, so that otherwise one will look for it in the other sex. And it might not be what's the best for you in that situation. Everybody has a different, conditioning here and now. And some people are more suited for the brahmachari ashram, some people are more suited for the grihastha ashram. But ultimately, at least for a man, and I think also for a woman today, it's very good to go through brahmacharini ashram for some time to get connected to Krishna consciousness deeply. Otherwise, it will be very difficult later on to live in the more complicated grihastha ashram. Yeah, somebody have any comments or corrections? As I said, this was very much on the theoretical platform, so please, yeah.
Yeah, very nice type of social lecture.
Thank you.
I was thinking about this dimensional qualities of different complexes. Also, it was related to the society in the context. Like people are very much in democracy nowadays. I think that's the best way to rule or to do this democracy. And people have lost totally their faith in kingdom, like having a king.
Mm.
And that like being ruled by one person, that's like very much like I think everywhere they like hate it.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing that like during Kali's good qualities of Raja Rishi, who really cares for the and is loved for the people who are sort of under his serving and Raja Rishi, and saying with man and woman relationships, that has become like a perverted reflection of the good qualities. Like in some cultures, maybe they're still seen this, what you mentioned, that man is lazy and just kind of expecting to be ruler and enjoying everything, and the woman is like like a slave way. That's like a very bad reflection of that old system where the good qualities are involved in both man and woman, and also in the bigger picture in society, the politics and how to move people without abusing them. I think that's very nice that we have this, we can give this, this knowledge from the Muktarama and Muktarama. They are not just from old fashioned, like saying female and male qualities, try to put people in some critics might think that we try to put people in the box,
Yeah.
But like you said, nowadays ladies can do, they can be the leaders of the state and they can live alone and manage, but it's maybe, it's like reflects the society and yeah, it's like big issue, you spoke nicely. I want to say, sorry, this is a long comment, but
No problem.
I had just few years ago, I realized this very simple point we often mention, this really conditioned souls want to enjoy and control, enjoying and controlling. And in some people it varies, like some people are more into controlling and some people a little bit more into enjoying. Of course, everybody has both, but and it's interesting, you can psychologically deal with different people, like in the work society or in any society or with other people, that if you notice a little bit these tendencies, like for example your boss maybe is a little bit more into this relation of trying to control and not so much enjoy, and with giving that kind of respect and like recognizing the position, that makes the relationship easier even with a little bossy person, or like like it's, we can use our knowledge of different knowledge of what we have to how to deal with people, with each other, and so that you kind of give, like a wife would give this kind of feeling for the man that he's controlling, but actually she's controlling by being a certain kind of, in a nice way, but you can do this in other relationships also.
Yeah.
It's quite,
Good point.
I've noticed this even at workplace. With some other people or some other colleagues who want maybe more this kind of enjoyment. Like, okay, let's make some nice tea and biscuits, and then she's happy, and it's like, and also the modes of nature, things we can use this to see how people work, and us, it's kind of like, I feel it's our philosophy is also very psychological, and shows what we can use this in all dealings with people.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, that was not a question, but I like the
No, that comment. And you also brought up something that I like, the old-fashioned idea of, because many people have heard about similar things. This old-fashioned, like you said, a man and a woman. Woman should be in the kitchen. The man should be this and that. So people have the example of the bad side of it, the forced one, which means that women are basically pushed down and forced to be like a slave, basically, in the household like that. So many times when people hear this, then they're immediately there. Or I mean, I'm included in that also. It took me a long time to actually accept these things. I was a feminist before, and really anyway. So yeah, it's very easy to misunderstand it into being something like that. One cannot, and I don't think one, like you said, put into the box. I don't think one can push anybody to do this. You can't push anybody into this. It has to be accepted by them, by themselves. Like with anything, I mean, if you're practicing Krishna consciousness, you can't be pushed to do it. You have to have some devotion in order to do it. It's not about being in a sect and being forced to do this and that ritual and whatever, because ultimately that won't work. And it's the same in these relationships. That it has to be inspired by showing the example, I think, already. Shishigornitai ki jai. Somebody have something else to say? Gopal Krishna.
Can you elaborate more about there in very much feminist influence circumstances? So what to do? What is how you present this to them?
To present this to them, you mean? I don't know. I don't think this should be presented in the beginning to any person who comes to Krishna consciousness, unless they're interested in it, unless they ask about it. Because I think Prabhupada mostly had the mood, when he came to America, because I think it can be misunderstood, that's the point. But when Prabhupada came to America, he wasn't speaking about this so much. He was mostly just saying, just chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, Like that's the basic point. I know some devotees, or one devotee who actually preaches about this very much on social media, and as soon as he meets somebody, he's very much about this, this kind of topic, and he maybe goes a little bit too far also, at least according to my opinion, he goes a little bit too far. And I can see that it doesn't inspire them. They feel like, oh, this is nothing I don't want to have anything to do with this. Because this knowledge is it's not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not purely spiritual knowledge. This is more about how to, it's Varnashram Dharma. It's how to use material nature in Krishna's service. And ultimately it becomes spiritual in that sense. But for them, they don't understand. They won't understand how does this have anything to do with spiritual life. For them, they need to hear first, you're not the body and all these things. And on the spiritual platform, we are equal. So one can even say that, it's, I think it's very important for them to, because they already have that belief that we are equal, but we can tell them why we are equal. They don't know why we are equal. But then later on, it can be good to understand that we are equal because we're the spirit soul, but we don't know that yet. Like I didn't realize it yet, that I'm a spirit soul. So I need to use that nature in Krishna service. And then we will get some strength to actually ultimately in the end understand that we are spirit soul, and then we will understand that we're all equal, because up until then it's purely on the theoretical platform. And as you see in society, like they say all this, that we're equal and all that, but it's like you can't really do anything because it's not realized knowledge. It becomes very temporary and very, on the theoretical platform, nothing really can change a person on the depth. You can start kind of changing laws and this and that, but it won't really change the act, like the how we act, because we have certain conditionings that are there, and like that. So, but I think what can be, if one wants to preach, then one should just basically show the example, like with everything else. All preaching is mainly showing a good example, and then maybe, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, you should preach always, and sometimes you should also say something. So he meant you should not always just tell people what to do. You should just basically just do it yourself, and then they will see it and they will feel inspired by it and actually do it. And some things you should also tell people, but if you only tell this and that, people, it's too much. It's like a machine gun of instructions, and it's like too much for people. I know how it is myself. If somebody's always talking to me and they're preaching to me this and that, and especially in the beginning, it's like it's enough to hear the most basic things, and then you can take it with you, think about it, try to apply it in your life, and then you come back and you hear something more, and then so it's it's like eating a cookie. You can't press the whole thing in your mouth immediately. You have to take a small bite here and there, and then you can finish it slowly. So, did that answer the question? Okay. Anybody else have something more to say, or are we ready for prasadam? Okay. Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Muktarama Prabhu ki jai.